All right, we've got most people are here now. We're just under 30 attendees, so I might do the little preamble. I've got a couple slides here just to go through related to IT itself, and I don't want to take too much time away from the real stars of the show today. Um, we're going to be recording today, just so everybody's aware. And so there's people who couldn't attend today. We're going to try to share this somewhere where they can watch the video later on too. So just like to welcome everybody to our kind of early spring virtual meeting for ITE, something we kind of kicked off out of necessity in 2020. These kind of smaller lunch and learn kind of style things. We're hoping to continue this in the future as kind of and hopefully in the future we'll do it in February to make it more of a midwinter break. But I think it's something that gives us a chance to do something different. We can focus, as we have a few times now, on our students coming up through the universities. We have ideas maybe in the future of doing external speakers from the region as well. So it's not always me or Dave McCusker talking to you. Just as opportunities to try to do something different for the membership here to break up those midwinter blahs, hopefully in the future. So thanks to everybody for signing up. Hopefully you're enjoying your free lunch. I'm going to drive that joke right into the ground by the end of this, so don't worry about that. So while everybody else kind of files in here, we're getting pretty close. I'll just put up some slides here too that Yvonne, I think, who's on the meeting here, is shared with us, just to do a quick plug on the national conference and a couple other things. Let me get you all back up on screen. So hopefully you can all see that now. And hopefully you're all already aware that the national conference is coming up in Winnipeg, June 4th to 7th. Early bird registration ends today. So if you're not like me and you've got your travel approval already, then make sure you can sign up today and save yourself a little bit of money. It is June 4th to 7th, as it says there, in Winnipeg. So hopefully we can see all or most of you there. We just move the slides ahead here. There's a bunch of technical tours, of course. One's focusing on cycling, walking, and transit, the bus production and CN training facilities, and other things. So it should be some really cool stuff to do while you're there as well. And on the tail end of the conference, there's a protected intersection design workshop as a training opportunity there as well. So if you can tie in an extra day, and if that's something that's interests you, that's a really great opportunity to learn about protected intersections. And lastly, before I stop talking here and we get the universities on here, just as a reminder to everybody, it is, we are the Institute of Transportation Engineers, but the organization has really got a big push on here too, that it's really should be encompassing all transportation professionals, because even in our transportation planning group here at HRM, the majority of folks in our group are not engineers, but working very heavily on transportation planning and engineering projects. So planners can join free with ITE. So that's a really great promotion, and a bunch of our folks here in the room here, Jason and me, have joined as well, who are non-engineers. So that's great. But that's enough of me talking. So what our focus really is for today is to shine the spotlight on two of the big universities in the region here. Most of us, as Eric was alluding to earlier, are grads of one of these two schools, a lot of us anyway. And it'd be really great to hear what they're doing, what the research is going on about their programs. So we've kind of given them carte blanche to do what they want. And first up today is going to be UNB. So I'm assuming, Trevor, you're going to lead the show there. Go for it.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sounds great.
Now, oops. Why don't we start from the beginning? Let's start from the beginning. So are you seeing a red slide that says UNB Transportation Group, 50 plus years?
Yep.
Wonderful. So Adam, on behalf of all of us here at the UNB Transportation Group, I want to thank you and Mark and your whole team for extending the invitation to do this today. It's really exciting for us, and also to connect with Dr. Habib and his group at Dal and Daltrack, because there's some great work coming out of out of there, and both our schools, and some great. This I think is a great opportunity for us to see what everybody's up to and look at how we could collaborate regionally going forward. But 50 years, 50 years that over 50 years that we've been doing transportation research at UNB on the Fredericton campus, and we have a colleague on the St. John campus as well. But we are located here along the St. John River, and we were founded in 1968. And I guess what you're going to see today is a little bit of background on our group, who we are, and what we've been up to, and what our students have been up to. Kind of give you a bit of insight of who we are and what we do. So we cover a broad array of transportation interests, everything from road safety, travel demand modeling, and rural planning. We're starting to get an increased focus there. We've been doing work in active transportation planning and as well as growing in pavement materials, operations research. Dr. Christie is working in that area. We're starting to get into accessibility research, as that's again a huge area of opportunity to help improve transportation for people, and particularly those with the disability. In big data and administrative data, we have a colleague that we work with in Australia who's a big data expert, and now we're starting to get in more into using administrative data. That's data that's generated through government means. Anytime you may access a system, it's because of the the rural and small city challenges that come with lack of data. So we're starting to get into that area, as well as sustainability and economics. So to show you who our team includes, we've got myself as the coordinator of the research group, and of course you would know Dr. Hildebrand Eric, who was coordinator for 20 years. I may not get that, maybe more than that, Eric. I'm not sure. I think it was 20 years as coordinator of the group. And my area has been in policy and rural travel and doing a bunch more stuff now in rail. And Dr. Hildebrand is in road safety and traffic and collision research. And Dr. Xiomara Sanchez has done a heck of a job to grow our pavement research capacities, and you'll see some pictures of our labs later. Dr. Yuri Evdokimov, who is in the economics branch and in transportation, as well as we have a couple of adjunct professors in civil engineering, including some colleagues in Australia, Dr. Wakovich and Dr. Varamine, who in pavement materials. And I've got, of course, acknowledged Dr. James Christie. Jim Christie, retired several years ago, but you'd never know it because you could always find him. And he's on the call today. He's an honorary research professor and one that can still contribute so much to this day in terms of helping in terms of thesis reviews and providing great guidance. So we're thankful for Dr. Christie. And Dr. Wilson, which some of you may remember, who was he was one of the founders of our research group. In our group, you can get a PhD, you can get an MSCE, and you can get an MEng. And most of the students we have working now are working on their MSCE, though we are seeing growing numbers in the Masters of Engineering. And you'll see the major difference is in terms of the number of credit hours. So the type of report, thesis, or dissertation. So if you're doing an MSCE, it's about 5 3-credit courses, includes a thesis. The MEng includes more courses, but also a major technical report. And a PhD, of course, is a major contribution to the field of civil engineering, and involves a major contribution of a dissertation. But we do have historically draw mostly from civil engineering, but we've had students from a variety of backgrounds, and we do have some with urban planning backgrounds as well. I won't go through all of our courses here, but you can see that we've and again, Dr. Habib's class in transportation planning, we've got a similar course as well in dealing with planning and modeling, but we also have pavement and simulation and traffic and road safety engineering. We teach highway and railway engineering, and railway is kind of an area that is starting to see a renaissance. And infrastructure asset management policy. We love talking transportation policy, and I know that was one thing that I always thought was really fascinating as a course, was just helping us as engineers and transportation professionals better understand the world in which we operate. And we also have an award-winning, and I have a picture of our award, transportation seminar series, which has been running for over 50 years as well. And we have courses in economics and there's courses in operations. So that's just a bit about our program, but maybe I'll go now into a bit about us. And I kind of like to start off by saying, like, and I think this is true for all transportation people, right? The world is our classroom. We try to get out and see things. We like to get out and about. And so here is a picture of us at the NB Southern Railway a couple of years ago. This is, I'll be honest, it's a few haircuts ago for me. It's been a while. But we've been thankful for partners that allow us to come in and to learn about the facilities. Like we had a great tour with some MBA students from the Port from City of St. John, and we Port of St. John. They're doing a heck of a job there with a massive $250 million modernization. And you can see some big cranes there in the background. So we had a great tour there. But we also don't just stay in New Brunswick. This is us in Paris. We have a group of students that we took on a transportation field school, and this included a number of our grad students. So this is the TGV. This goes a little bit faster than the Via trains, I'll be honest. And 300 kilometers an hour from Paris to Stuttgart, where and we have some, I think Riley's on the call, who was part of that trip when he was doing his master's here. And so, yeah, we try to get out. We have a great relationship with the university in Germany. So this is us working with the German graduate students as part of that field school. And people who know me now, I'm kind of like this shameless self-promoter that's always taking selfies on trips. And this was us. That includes a number of our grad students, undergrad, and soon to start grad students. One of the students on the far left, Bianca, will be joining us this summer. She's from Germany, but she's going to spend the summer at UNB working on a transportation modeling project, which is pretty cool. We like to get out to conferences when we can. So here's us at the Canadian Transportation Research Forum. We will have a contingent going to ITE in Winnipeg. I think we're entering the traffic bowl. We'll see if UNB comes back with it this year. We'll do our best. We've had also participating locally in terms of some great pavement seminars that UNB has helped to host, and we've had pavement and asphalt research presented in Montreal, and Dr. Sanchez is quite involved with that. And this is an ITE student chapter field trip to the Fredericton Airport. It's pretty cool because that's gone under a major renovation. It's not as big as the Halifax Airport, I know, but it was really great that we have these connections that are able to take us through and help us learn about the local infrastructure. This is our students are getting out and participating in ITE activities. So here were some presentations that our students gave at the ITE Atlantic meeting held in Fredericton last year. And so Kristen talking about modeling active transportation with the four-step model. Riley talking about his roundabout research, and there's Alex and Barry talking about I think the student chapter and trying to raise some funds for the chapter and its upcoming trips. But in addition, for us going to the world, we like to try to bring the world to us too, and we are it's quite involved with engaging alumni and friends in our activities. So you probably, again, I'm all over LinkedIn, and we had our transportation seminar series, which our graduate students take as a course. We've been able, because I guess COVID pushed us to go virtual, but it's actually been a blessing in disguise as well, because we've been able to bring in speakers from all over and attendees from all over. And in addition to that, we've been able to engage some alumni to come back and speak into our classes. So some of you may remember Mike Ursha, who's a transportation group professor, and he came in and spoke about marine policy, and it was fascinating. It was just great to hear him speaking again. And we've also had people join us. So this is Olivia Babcock, one of our, she worked with Myovision, and a company you might be familiar with. And she came back and visited us in person for a seminar this year. In fact, she gave two because campus was closed because of a snowstorm. She flew all the way from Toronto, and campus was closed. She had to present virtually, of all things. But she then came in and joined us in class, and you can see a number of our students in the seminar class there. We also were recognized by ITS Canada for the 50 plus years of our devotion to the transportation seminars and serving the local industry as well as more broadly. We also have a transportation engineering lab. This is right next to us here, and this is where our grad students will work on their projects, including we've got Barry and Alex here. And we've got a brand new renovated asphalt materials lab So here's some of the newer equipment and some of our students working with it here. And this is under Dr. Sanchez, CMR Sanchez, was doing some great work. But we really needed to show you the before and after on this. And so here, if some of you who may have, if you've attended UMB, may remember what the old Asphalt lab kind of looked like. And the interesting thing to me is that there was some equipment there that was so old that the serial number was like 1 digit. So it was time for some new stuff. And Dr. Sanchez has completely modernized and renovated this lab, and it's leading to some great growth in our pavement materials side. We also feel like our research is making a difference, and I'll provide some examples of some of the things that we're working on, and including on the road safety side. Of course, Dr. Hildebrand, as you know, is one of Canada's leading road safety experts. And UMB has been working over 50 years with a Transport Canada collision and research team, and recently has been partnering with ENGlobe for the UMB ENGlobe collision research team. And this is for doing some great work here, because the more we can understand about how things work in a collision, the more we can do to help make roads safer and make safer for those who may be in a collision. So some stuff that's coming from here may have led to recalls into vehicles, that issues that have been identified. So there's been a number of UMB students and graduates that have worked through this collision research team and gained some invaluable skills, but also have contributed to improving road safety in Canada. Dr. Sanchez has been expanding her footprint in UMB's footprint in pavement and materials research, and is now working on projects in all of the maritime provinces. And everyone this time of year is going to be thinking about potholes, and Dr. Sanchez here is doing an article about what spring pothole season and what the engineering is behind that. And is recently at TRB talking about some of the work that her students have been doing, also on the recycled material side. So the more we could do to find, and I think that's the innovative thing that she's been up to, is like, if we can find better uses for materials that we could put into roads that would reduce stuff that goes from the landfill, I think it's definitely a win-win. And on the work that I've got a number of students that have been working in trying to address some of the smaller city and rural challenges. Like Kristen Burns up here in the top left, we looked at her whole master's thesis was focused on using a 4-step model to model active transportation for small cities. And we've got some great modeling experts here on the call, and in a classroom in Halifax at the moment. And we all know about the challenges faced with trying to model things, including active transportation. So we thought, well, let's take a look at that particular issue for small cities. And it was really cool. The 2 bridges that have pedestrians in Fredericton really gave us a great case study. And we have Barry Reardon over here, who's talking about the data that we've been using for health transportation planning. And you're probably going to see more of that kind of research from us in the years ahead. We've been also doing work on rail safety and accessibility, and I'll speak more to that once you meet our students. So let's meet some of our students. So Barry Reardon is he's the president of the ITE student chapter at UNB, and he's been working on using administrative health data for transportation planning. So Bree Benson, who's I believe on the call, she did her master's degree. Can we use health data through this secure facility that allows researchers to use anonymized health data? Can we use that for transportation planning, particularly to help older adults who the health effects of aging can make driving difficult over time? But what are we doing on the transportation side? So many things are centralized, and we know it's making things can make it more difficult, but who's monitoring that? So leveraging off Bree's work, Barry's been looking at taking these health data and say, can we figure out the time of day that people go to the hospital or the physician, the number of times that they might go, the distance that they might travel, and can we use that to determine what a system might look like for those if they can't drive themselves there? So getting some operational metrics, which is transportation engineers we love. Zahara Zedekat is finishing up her MSCE, and she's looking at age-friendly active transportation. So you may have heard of age-friendly cities, and the World Health Organization has like a ton of there's a lot of people that have bought into the age-friendly cities concept, and there's like audit guides out there, and they say in them that they're meant for engineers to use, but we can't seem to find any engineers that have used them. So what or certainly not much published on it. So what we as a Haraz come up with is to use some of those guides and to try to come up with an objective means to move beyond, let's say, neighborhood assessments and look at, can you assess a whole city and help prioritize the development of active transportation infrastructure for older adults and to track that progress over time. Nora Salom has been working with Dr. Sanchez, and she's been working on trying to develop new and improved asphalt concrete standards for New Brunswick. And this includes the analysis of current practices and performance testing, and looking at different ways to improve mix designs. Tyler Summers is also working with Dr. Sanchez and finishing up this year, and he's looking at improving road rehabilitation practices in Nova Scotia, including the practices at STIR, and looking at different ways that you can improve rehabilitation techniques for pavements. And we have a number of first-year students working on their MSc as well. William Morrison, his worked. We've got a contribution agreement with Transport Canada to look at installing what's called a flangeway filler. So when you've got a train track and it crosses a road at a grade crossing, there's a gap that's left between the track and the road to allow what's called the flange of the train wheel. It's basically like there's like a flat part of the wheel, and then there's part of the wheel that sticks out that keeps the train in between the tracks. And that gap is just about the same size as a wheelchair caster wheel. And over the last number of years, every few years or so, there's been a fatality in Canada because someone's been crossing at a crossing, and they've been using a wheelchair, most likely a power chair. And when they've backed up, let's say they saw something coming, they backed up, the wheels have fallen into the gap, and the chair becomes immobilized. So if there's a way that we can fill that gap that both makes it so that won't happen again, but also allows the train movement to continue, we're gonna make a lot of things safer. And we see things in other parts of the world where they use this, but it's never been tried in Canada. So his work is to document that effort and to try to come up with a plan of where to install these over time by understanding the current processes for accessible crossings. And we're working with NRC right now. We're probably going to go up there in a couple of weeks and see how the testing is going, who are testing these fillers for us as part of this contribution agreement. And Alex Gallant, who's just in his first year as well, who's looking at pedestrian safety and driver behavior at roundabouts. And so he's supervised by Dr. Hildebrand and myself. And really trying to better understand from the pedestrian experience side of roundabout use. And we have a lot of new roundabouts that we see in Fredericton and elsewhere. And, we've got questions. Are there things that maybe we aren't measuring now that may play a role into how people feel about crossing? Do they feel safe? What's the yield compliance? Or what's the relationship between design speed and real world exit speeds? There's so many great questions can come out of here. We have a number of other students that are just getting started. We have a number of MEng students as well that are working on various projects. And we have a number of students starting with us in the fall, which we expect they'll be working on everything from transport accessibility to guide rail research. So a lot of different stuff going on at UNB. And if you would like to know more about what we are doing, feel free to send me an email, and or search us at UNB Transportation Group for more information. I believe I've got it. I think we're done.
Awesome. Thanks, Trevor. Yeah, we're in right on time too. We have a couple minutes for questions if anybody has a question for Trevor. Not seeing any. Okay. And one thing I neglected to do up front is just introduce the ITE executive here for ITE Atlantic Canada. I'm Adam Lanigan. Hopefully most of you know me by now. I'm the president currently. You can see on screen here is Hannah McBride, who's our new secretary treasurer. She's sitting about 20 feet that way from me here at HRM. And also on the call earlier was Courtney. I don't know if she's still here. She had her new EIT with her there as well. And Mark couldn't make it today. He's in the depths of writing a proposal, so he sends his regrets. He's our past president. There's Courtney and her little friend. So I think we'll move on then. We are just about at 12:30 here, so move on to talk to our friend Hassan at Dalhousie. Oh, you're muted now, Hassan.
Thanks, Adam. Can you see my slide?
Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, the whole ITE community and the students here as well. Before I start our more research-focused presentation, I can just give you a quick rundown on
Hassan,
yeah.
just before you go, we're looking at your speaker notes, not the actual full slides. Yep, still the same. I think under display settings in the top there, if you can change that. There you go.
Sounds good now? Perfect. So before I start on our research, current research agenda, maybe I can give a quick rundown on DAL, like what we are doing in transportation. We have a civil engineering program as well as urban planning program. We have undergraduate students taking transportation as a research. So they are getting trained on more, as Trevor mentioned, is a complementary. They're more on the transportation planning, modeling, simulation, active transportation design on those sides, not on the hardware sides like pavement design or geometric design. We have a couple of faculty members, including some Daltrack postdoc and adjunct professor. I am mostly doing data collection, modeling, and simulation. We have Noman Ali in the civil, does some teaching as well as pavement design. We have Ren Thomas working on transportation and land use interactions. We have Chad Walker recently working a lot on the EV electric vehicle community consultation and on those participatory approach in transportation planning. And we have courses, master's program, PhD program, as well as undergrad. So we have a kind of a full-fledged kind of a barrel at this point in the last 12 years. We developed this expertise, and lots of our undergraduate and graduate students, both from Bachelor of Community Design and Civil Engineering program, are employed in HRM as well as NSTIR and other places.
One last thing, Hassan, your Teams window's in the lower left there, so we can't see your full slide. We're looking at me currently. Yeah, there you go.
Perfect. Sounds good. So let's start. So I put together my presentation more on our research program, particularly in next 5 years. Climate action evaluation. That's one of the big project we just awarded $3.6 million. So tons of postdoc and graduate students and undergraduate students alike will be employed or already being employed to develop this bottom-up activity-based transport network and emission model, not only for Halifax, but Fredericton or Moncton, for example, some Ontario cities, Hamilton, Ottawa in particular, Calgary, as well as in Ottawa. So I'll give you a quick snapshot of what we will be doing or what we are planning, and how can we also encourage more partnership on collecting data, and what is our conceptual framework, what we have done so far, and what are the next steps. So at the very beginning, climate action is planning is one of the sought after endeavor at this point, particularly our commitment to the net zero emissions by 2050. And there are multiple federal level plans. Canada's 2020 emissions reduction plan, healthy environment and healthy economy plan is bolstering that discussion, not only on transportation, but in other net zero building and other kinds of initiative as well. So similarly, Halifax have this ambitious but very, very clear-cut, bold move with HaliAct 2050, accompanied by our IMP, Integrated Mobility Plan. There is quite a bit of commitment from the municipality to do so. So aligned to this, Halifax and many other cities, like we wanted to help, particularly on the evaluation side, how we can evaluate like what's going on in terms of like people's movement, in terms of greenhouse gas emissions for people's movement and goods movement, and what kind of scenario or policy scenario we can adopt to achieve those net zero by 2050. And so this is the project goal, mainly theoretical and empirical foundation building in next 5 years for a very multi-scale in the finer level quantification of traffic movement, both passenger and freight, as well as greenhouse gas emissions. And we have 3 or 4 partner universities, UBC, McMaster, U of T, as well as multiple partners who are also in this call today from Halifax. Mike, Tanya Davis signed off initially, but we have Nova Scotia Energy and various Transport Canada and various others partners who will be meeting very soon to have our plans to put in action. As you know, like we consider similar to Trevor was mentioning, it's a living laboratory. We are trying to sense the cities. We have multiple wireless data collection in Hollis Street, University Avenue for active data collection, for example. But also we have a robust, in the last 12 years, robust data collection a program we developed through NovaTrack, HaliTrack, or multiple kind of that sort of a branding, and the tremendous set of graduate and undergraduate students. And this is one of the old photo, I believe. Some of those folks are probably already in this call as a professional, but we have quite a bit of a team to do so. So 3 main objectives in the next 3 years. We will be looking at how to develop an activity-based tour level, not only passenger demand, but also the supply chain and goods movement for modeling emissions and movements of traffic. We would like to also look at a bit more closely on how COVID changed many equations, including telework, local deliveries, online shopping. So we'll be collecting data and try to understand what will be the resulting emissions therefore. And at the end, we would like to test or develop some sort of a tool so that planners who doesn't need to always need to know the entire back end of the modeling software, they can play with scenarios. Say if EV adoption is certain percentages, what could be this overall reduction in GHG? What will be overall impact on transport network? So that's our goal for these multiple cities to look at. So we are already in action by collecting data for Halifax, HaliTrack, which was separately funded by HRM, but we collected lots of newer information, and in a way that become our template for other cities and the province as well. We are also trying to get some more crowdsourced data, GPS data, Google data. So we are harvesting some of those data, of course, not to bolster any president to win their election, but more to understand what's going on in travel activity and what we should be doing to remedy, particularly for climate actions. And we have already completed this phase 1 and phase 2 for Halifax. And in phase 3, we are doing more joint transport authority, which was newly created in Nova Scotia. We are doing couple of their counties. And one good news, just last week, we got NSERC Alliance as well to collect initially we didn't thought about collecting entire Nova Scotia through this our climate CAF project, but looks like we got funded for that as well. So we'll be doing data collection for entire province as well for a statewide models. And we have these Daltrack as a kind of a service system and client and different kinds of tools to capture data, archive data, and give access to students. That's the most important one. A couple of our undergraduate student and graduate student, even if they are not fully working with Daltrack Lab, they have access to work on those and do lots of interesting things we are watching. So these are some of the communication that we have done for HRM for HRM data collection. We just have the first glimpse of the data. Mode share is always the problem for us or anybody in rural or medium-sized towns. 75% auto and decreasing transit, but these are giving us first a snapshot of what's going on, different kinds of work arrangement, telework, giving us some understanding of like who is right now doing different kinds of work arrangement work, which has a very direct impact on GHG as well as vehicle kilometer traveled. And activity location, we are collecting that as well. Now, directly jump into this conceptual model, what we are trying to do. We are going, as I mentioned, a very micro level analysis for this model development. We did already population synthesis for entire HRM and more activity-based model. We developed activity generation model, scheduling, mobility assignment. Right now, we are trying to put even vehicle type, vehicle usage, because we know exactly whether people are using Honda Civic versus Hummer for their trips. So we will be able to actually get those information in on that. So those are already like we have a model. We have a model for Halifax from 2018 data. Now we are just revamping in this year with the 2022 data. But one of the biggest piece, what we are betting ourselves, at least the graduate student, at least putting their thesis on crosshair, is trying to do the business establishment synthesis, supply chain models, like freight movement modeling is very, very, I would say in a naive state in Canada in general. Other than Matthew Rhoda, I haven't seen much good progress on that side. So we are trying with this good investment from the government to develop some of those, and we have multiple faculty members from industrial engineering as well as management working with us to really make sense of those freight delivery, long haul, medium haul, as well as the delivery truck, because neighborhoods are now actually swarmed with those Amazon or many informal way of this delivery, and we need to know how they are moving. Based on that, we are putting them in the traffic simulator. Right now, our model is ME. We just developed a prototype for Vism, but we are going in a more direction of a match sim at this point to get use of our very detailed activity generation that we are doing. And also it will help us to do much better job with our emission calculation. And when we are talking about emission, it's not just the emission factor. We are trying to do more acceleration, deceleration basis modeling here, so that we have a very better and very clear, finer grain understanding at the link level what's going on, GHG, who is getting exposed to, and those are, and these are again like the tough slides. PhD students always put it for me because they feel that the tough will give them the degree, but again, like they are working very hard on trying to really use advanced methods to utilize the data that we have. The same thing that what I explained is in a more detailed way how we generated activity. Destination location choice is one area. In general, the entire travel behavior research community in the world is struggling. So we are putting some more emphasis on not only workplace destination choice, but also shopping, also restaurants or any other non-work trips. We are trying to improvise those models. And shared travel is also another one, because like we are getting interested in various interesting policies like shared mobility, even mobility as a service in like next 5 to 10 years. So we need to have our models capable of evaluating those kind of interesting piece. But I will emphasize on the vehicle usage model. We haven't seen much modeling on like the vehicle type. Vehicle type was always classified by size of the vehicle. We are trying to classify them by fuel efficiency or gasoline and diesel or electric. And if our model can be represented that way, then we can analyze scenarios of electric vehicle adoption and any incentives, any policy changes that we do, then our model can answer those policy questions. And this is one of the tasks for at least one PhD is working on right now on this. And we are hoping to get a little bit better understanding by the end of the year, this year. And again, long haul, I already mentioned, we are using InfoCanada data and trying to get a sense of what's going on in Halifax, particularly. So we have the data for entire province, how many business establishment with the employers and their sales volume and all of other kinds of things we are trying to understand by NAIC code, like what's that movement could look like. And freight modeling, the reason why it's not probably happening is a governance issue. Some of those are federal government jurisdiction, some municipal, some provincial, and it's not like very well organized. But we would like to partner with anyone who is interested in this goods movement modeling. Dynamic traffic assignment, I will not emphasize too much, but it's again, like as I told you, we are trying to get our emission estimates from the acceleration, deceleration, more kind of a VISM micro scale modeling. So what's that compromise between macro and micro scale modeling? That's what we'll be looking at in next couple of years. And micro level emissions modeling is also in our agenda. So that's in a nutshell, like what is our conceptual modeling work that needs to be done. But prior to that, we also need to know what policies like we would like to analyze, or what are the climate action plan. So a couple of our faculty members and students started looking at, particularly planning student. We are thinking about even recruiting a master planning studies student or BCD undergraduate on those, like where like what kind of policies different cities are actually thinking about, at least on a qualitative point of view, what emphasis they are giving, what experts are talking about, so that we can generate those scenarios to test in the model. And model will be available, say 1 or 2 years from now. So we want to start that process, because that will dictate model structure. That will dictate what this new generation model should look like. We really wanted to make a big splash on this one, since we have quite a good investment and students are motivated, graduate students. I think this is the right time to really get some consistent modeling framework for Halifax, which become the prototype for Ottawa, for Calgary, and for all our partner in this proposal. So we tested, though, this scenario process with our existing model, which we have for Halifax, and Halifax, a very activity-based, tour-based models. What we do not have at this point is the goods movement side, but all others. So we did tested our pandemic scenario. We have some data from 2018, which was pre-pandemic scenario. So we created that, and since we created an activity-based model, it was so easy to use a lockdown scenario, because the only thing that our public health officials did is they didn't utilize their medical degree credentials, didn't come up with a vaccine on day one. They all became transport planners. So what they did, they simply restricted movement and visits to activity centers. So it was quite a nice way at that time when we heard the lockdown news. I I came back to the lab and tell all students, change your thesis topic. And we got our first NSERC Alliance, and we did multiple work on this particular sets because the modeling framework, and this is I am emphasizing, the model should be in a way built so that it can answer the current policy scenarios. And if we are not bringing planning students, planning discussions in that, we cannot have those modeling, no matter how complicated or sophisticated that model becomes. So we did that lockdown because we have this activity-based, tour-based, joint and solo trips, solo tour. So we use that, and also post-pandemic scenario. In post-pandemic side, it was before right now what we call post-pandemic. It was more the plan for phase 1 reopening, phase 2 reopening, and phase 3 reopening when there was lifts in different kinds of activities. So this is not based on the 2020 data, which we just collected. It's just a demonstration purposes for you. And we got a couple of TRB and other publications out of it. So we ran the model for Halifax, for example. If you look at the right-hand side, I do not want to talk about all the graphs. See, during the lockdown, our percentage change of auto trips is 46% less than what was before the pandemic. Phase 1, 14% less than before the pandemic, 5% in phase 2. But interestingly, in phase 3, what our model suggests that we actually increased our VKT despite all the telework, despite all of other kinds of changes that happened. And we are right now inquiring what is the cause, because there is still an open question whether teleworking is reducing overall VKT. We don't know that answer yet. We have one of the PhD student working on that side, just trying to make sense of like what are the findings in other cities, whether Boston or I think a couple of good work was done by Austin Group as well as UC Davis Group. So we are trying to understand those, but our model predicted that like we are going in that direction. 2022 validation with the new data that we can get, maybe we'll have a more answer. But active transportation, again, you see quite a we haven't got back as much active transit mode choice as we predicted, as we expected during these reopening phases. And we are in the process, and we validated this with our some emerging data from Apple as well as Google Mobility. They published a mobility report every month, so we compiled them at least at the aggregate level. We could validate, although we couldn't validate at the local levels because we didn't have any data of those kind. And again, this is another representation from the GHG, similar kind. So we are in 2021, we are going more than that. The purpose of showing this slide is more to show that we can actually go as detailed as Robie Street, Barrington Street in Halifax, and tell them what is the percentage change in the GHG or NOx or PM 2.5 or PM 10. So I think that's a wonderful job that graduate students have so far put together. Now we want to extend it, particularly on the goods movement side for Halifax first by this year, and next year we'll move with that prototype to the next city, potentially Fredericton or Moncton, one of the new Brunswick city we promised to have, and then Ottawa, Hamilton, and then Calgary and Surrey, BC. We are also working, particularly Jeff Brook from U of T and Daniel Raynam from Dalhousie, trying to see if we can use some satellite image to validate like our model results. And again, I already explained about policy scenario analysis. Chad Walker, as well as McCracken Institute of Public Policy, Kevin Quigley is helping us on those things, and we'll be probably have those things in the next 5 years. Lots of activity, lots of excitement, and we are looking forward to it. So this is the timeline for by 2027, how we would like to move on, which I just explained. But from this community, we are seeking municipal partners. We are already collecting data, but if you would like to partner with us from a communication point of view for any either in-kind cash or whatever way you'd like to join with us, you are welcome. It's a tremendous opportunity, at the same time tremendous level of work, particularly data collection. Modeling part graduate students are very good at, but data collection needs a lot of folks, and we are very thankful for Mike groups, Lean, and many others, for Halifax, Dave and Adam, for JTA, all of those things. But we would like to have more people like having those. We just did a one data collection and modeling workshop. We'll do multiple workshop on modeling, because at the end, what we are looking for here is not just making this model very complicated because it gives PhD degrees, but also we want to make it accessible and usable by the municipal planners and engineers, and it's a more kind of a dialogue, and we'll go there to make it more not as complicated Chandravat's model, but not as easy as a commercial software can do. And we'll do multiple showcase events. We have planned. You can also go with that. It's a awareness building as well for climate action evaluation. It's not just modeling. Today I just chose to present on modeling and simulation side, but it's also about building kind of a awareness among citizens about what EV, electric vehicle, can do, what telecommuting can do if it's like done in a more appropriate, sustainable, and guideline basis. Otherwise, at some point, we'll see Elon Musk or many of those kind will start saying, oh, everybody needs to be in the office from next day, which actually is not a good idea. But at the same time, we should be very, very careful about drafting guidelines for teleworking so that it becomes sustainable. It reduces greenhouse gas emissions. You can see from lockdown 46%, but it needs to be in a way so that it creates opportunity and become a TDM strategy itself, which we promoted before pandemic and nobody picked up. But this is the chance to sustain those habits in a potential way, because there is no other way other than changing the fuel economy, changing the vehicle type ownership, changing your VKT, or using more active transportation, providing right kind of infrastructure for those. So we need to learn in all fronts to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions in general. So we'd like to partner on those research showcases, international conferences we are planning, and UNB could be a very good partner for those initiatives that we will probably start beginning talking about it. So that's in a nutshell, in a good story, to finish what we are up to for next 5 years. Thank you.
Thanks, Hassan. Yeah, it's a pretty big nutshell. All right, we do have just about 5 minutes left. Are there any questions for Hassan? Not seeing any hands raised or anything in the chat. Yeah, so thanks very much to both UNB and Dal, Trevor, and Hassan here for presenting to us. Lots of great stuff going on. I might sign up to get a master's here at some point. I'm probably a little late in the game for that. But yeah, thanks very much. Very exciting stuff going on. Glad to see it. Glad to see the grads coming out and getting jobs now too. I see Riley's email had changed, so that's great news from the fall. Just one last push. So the national conference, as I mentioned at the start, is in June, the early June there. So sign up. Today's the last day for early bird registration to save a bit of cash. We'll also be reaching out to you for the next spring in-person meeting for ITE Atlantic Canada here as well. So look for some communication on that very soon, so you can start planning for that as well, because we'd love to see you all again. That's about it on our end. Thanks to everybody for spending your lunchtime with us, and we'll talk soon.
And thank you, Adam, for giving us this opportunity. And it's a real delight for us to have this chance to connect and to see what everybody's up to, and to see how like our universities are really, we're making a difference, not just in the region, but we're making a difference around the world, and it's really awesome. So congrats to Dr. Habib, and thank you for having us.
All right. Thanks, Trevor.
Thanks, everyone.